Well, he was an artist. He was a teacher, and he was a hard worker in everything he did. He tried so hard. He did, everything until it was really complete. And sometimes I call him a human doing, because he was always go, 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 and everything had to be just so.
She was born in Newfoundland, worked in the National Theatre of Newfoundland, and got a teaching degree, taught French and German, coached rowing, needed a change, came to UVic in 86 when they started the Coaching Institute. Did the Coaching Institute, did her master's degree, and then got a job at Brentwood College coaching rowing.
Yes, we were living on our boat, which she loved. Living on the water gave her a great last year. Seals were one of her favorite things. She watched them in the water all the time.
I am so grateful that we had the ability to just spend quality time at the end of his life. Bill had melanoma cancer, and it was a reoccurrence. So he was doing very well in treatment, and one of his wishes is that he would go quickly, which he did. So he had super good quality of life right up to maybe 6 weeks before he passed away. And in those 6 weeks, it was so cool. We just spent it in bed, more or less, right? I cracked open a bottle of wine and I stayed in bed and we watched TV and we talked about things, and we were really prepared, and he was super prepared, which was amazing, right? Like, he faced his death with such dignity and such grace and such closure. I mean, it was amazing that he could do that, and it was such a gift to everybody around him because he was ready.
Right now, our culture is very death, I would say death fearful, and people don't want to talk about it. And although dying is inevitable for everyone, people don't like to consider that they in fact are going to die at some point.
So she just got to the point where she was so sick and she was in so much pain from Huntington's that she decided she just couldn't do it anymore. So she was 34 years old when she died.
What's important in looking after people at the end of life is responding to what their needs are and what is important to them. And that is very difficult in an acute care facility or a facility that isn't designed for end-of-life care. In a hospice, you can respond to what is important to that person, whether it is time with their family, whether it is privacy. So it is the most important thing at the end of life is to be able to respond to what their needs are.
He was passionate about golfing. And one day we were driving past the church on our drive, and he said, "At my service, I want my golf clubs to be in the church." And they were.
I didn't really think long term, like, oh, this isn't going to work, she's going to die. Both of us thought that we would recover. And we had total faith in the chemo and the treatments. Fully expected a recovery.
She couldn't look after herself, so she decided that she had had enough because she was very, very sick. So she decided to withdraw from food and water. And so what I did was I picked up the phone book and looked for hospice. So I found Cowichan Hospice, and I phoned and learned that they don't have any beds. I didn't know that hospice was anything but beds.
I think towards the end of November, we had the nurse in the morning and Patricia collapsed. So we got an ambulance, went to the hospital, and we never left. She was never home again. Yeah, I went to the Cowichan Hospital, spent about, I think about 3 weeks there, and then we got a bed in Chemainus.
The hospital is not a very good place for people to die. There's no privacy. Many people feel undignified by dying in the hospital end of life. Often they need to share a room because there's no space otherwise available. And we've had, like I said, patients die in our coffee room and coffee lounge. So a hospice would be the most appropriate place, a home-like environment where people can be supported and their families supported at end of life, as opposed to the hospital, which is providing really only medical care at end of life.
And I think to be in a place where you're surrounded by loved ones and people who care for you is most important.
One of the things I think would be amazing about a space like that is, you know, if there's severe medical issues and you're having your quiet time with your spouse and something happens, you're not in a state of huge anxiety about managing all of that, because there's somebody there who's got the skills that you can just sort of call on and say help, right? So I just, you know, we're all going to die, unfortunately. So we have to be prepared. We have to have the services and the supports in place.
So family support is actually a huge part of palliative care. And in a lot of ways, hospice, often we end up supporting the family more than the person who's dying, because the person who's dying is surrounded by the medical staff and the family and their friends who are caring for them really well. And they're quite well supported for the most part. It's the family members who are caregiving, nursing, having to watch their loved one die and having to realize that they have to go on without them after. So that's a huge weight to be carrying for a lot of people, and most people they're not nurses, so they don't know how to care for people. So there's that learning curve too of medications and just the whole medical system.
What we need is a cluster of end-of-life hospice beds which can provide specialized end-of-life care in the Cowichan Valley, which also can provide specialized end-of-life care for the families of those patients and allow for the families to be involved in that end-of-life experience, which they certainly cannot be in hospital.
Hospice palliative care is a specialty, just like other specialties in medicine. So we need the tools, we need the specialized trained staff, and we need the room for families and patients to live at the end of life. That isn't possible in an acute care facility. So a place for families to gather, for patients to be treated with specialized care if that's what they need. That's why we need a hospice.
That space has to enable people of all different communities, whether it's a First Nations community or different religious communities. We have to be open to all those people, but be able to support them as well with their own cultural aspects of their end-of-life care.
Because at the end of people's lives, they are so real. There is no games, no anything. And I wanted to work with those people, so I came to hospice and volunteered doing therapeutic touch for palliative people. And it's one of the most rewarding things that I do. Hospice literally saved my life.
You know, all of us die, and so I hope that all of us can have the opportunity to experience a good death, and we can't do that unless we're supported.
I didn't know anything about this, but it seems to me a bit of a scandal that there's one bed for end of life in the Cowichan Valley. And I mean, I was lucky I was 25 minutes away by car, but if she was in Nanaimo, I mean, people die here. How can there be one bed?